Okay, so this is the Albion percussion. All of the instruments have the same basic layout. We've got a list of various things you can purge, you can transpose, you can map velocity to control, rather than mapping velocity, which is quite useful. Especially if you're doing kind of rolls and things, you can really map them out nicely. You can reset your round robins or have your round robins limited. If you're working, for instance, in we'll see in a minute, in sequences of 8 notes or 8 beats, and you're using 8 round robins, you may find that the first beat of every 8 beats is the same, and that may sound slightly strange in a rhythmical form, so that we can change that to as many round robins as we fancy, depending on how many round robins there are in the recording. We can reset the round robins at a certain point if we wanted to. You can reset the round robins on transport, stop, start, etc. And you can use neighbouring zones to try and discourage the machine gunning effect you get doing trills and things like that. Very hard to hear, especially if we've got 8 round robins to start with, but that is quite useful again if you're doing trills and rolls. So I've chosen some microphone positions for most of these, and I've chosen a little bit of the direct and some of the tree, and in 1 or 2 I've used a bit of ambient just to give it a bit more feeling. But mostly it's just the close and the tree. So these are the marimbas. They are absolutely stunning. They're very rich. You've got lovely tone at low velocities, and then it comes out at the higher velocities, and you can hear if you do a little kind of roll. These are neither bass nor tenor nor other marimbas. They cover the whole range, so you've got a whole lot down here and up the top. Which are very nice. The great thing about the percussion library is under the little button over here, you've also got access to this rhythm matrix, which you can store 8 rhythms that you can switch using the key switches down the bottom. You can see the little red bits down the bottom there. So I'm just going to choose rhythm wrong. I just basically clicked a load of buttons and made this kind of very simple rhythm, and you can set your beats to as many beats as you like, but I've just happened to have chosen a standard 4-bar 4/4 type rhythm, and you can just play notes and it synchronizes with the metronome. So I'm just going to put the metronome on so you can hear it. So hopefully you should hear that. There we are. And then if you just play a chord in time to that, it'll just kind of play stuff. Which is quite sweet. So let's turn that awful noise off. As well as being kind of rhythmical, you can also set it to do the simple things in life. I often like to have marimbas playing long rolls. Well, here we are. A little bit machine gunny. So if we go back to the first and now choose neighbour zones, we may find there we are. Can we hear that? It's going billium, billium, billium. If I reset that to 6 round robins, it's resetting now for 6 notes. So you can trick it into starting at different round robins, which I quite like. So so that's the basic marimba. It's quite nice having these little patterns. So I'll just disable them. Now we're going to move on to bongos. They've been quite clever, and they've made sure that most of the small percussion don't overlap in their articulation. So for instance, you can have bongos and congas both loaded up on the same channel and they don't interact, which is great. So here are the bongos. They're a very they've got nice hits. They've got some lovely rolls. Always reminds me of Mission Impossible, which are lovely. Congas, we've got a very similar setup. We've got some conga hits at the top up here. And then you've got some other hits here. These are second conga. So you've got one down here and one up there. Then we got some rolls, and they've got a nice release on it, so you can turn off the release and put your own release on the end. But it's quite nice having a nice little hit at the release there. So that's the direct mics. And then finally you've got some swells, which are quite useful, and it is divided into 4 groups with different length swells that fit in with a certain number of bars. So if I just turn on the click for a second and you hit one, that's just one beat, and you got then, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that's a whole bar, which is quite nice. So you can choose the rolls to fit the song you're playing, which is quite nice. And you've got short rolls at one end and long rolls at the other end, which is great news. So we'll just turn off that irritating beep. So that's the congas. We've then got the Glockenspiel. Glockenspiel is absolutely beautiful. It has a damped and a normal hit, but to be honest, it's very hard to hear the difference unless you're a Glockenspiel expert. But here we are. Here's the Glock. It's absolutely stunning. Which is just lovely. There are no clever effects, there are no little twinkles. If you want to make twinkles, you just play them yourself. It's a Kontakt instrument, so you can see there the voices went up to 32, and it cut off some of the bottom notes, so it's nice and easy. You just scroll that up and make it something silly like 62, and then nice sustains. So the Glock is very useful. It's got about 2.5 octaves worth of Glock playing, which is very pretty. The Celeste has been described as one of the nicest Celestes in existence. It's actually the one they used in the Harry Potter soundtracks, allegedly. So let's see if I can remember how to play this one. So there we are, that's a Harry Potter-esque Celeste. Which again is absolutely beautiful. Layer that with the Glock, and you get this lovely sound. I can't do that with the soloing here, but that is the Celeste. Now down to the bottom end of the world. Here is the bass drum. You've got a whole load of different articulations here, including swells, rolls, and effects. But we basically got some nice hard hits, and then some soft hits. Big and boomy, just what we expect from Spitfire Audio. Do a nice little roll there with your 2 fingers, which is nice. If you don't fancy doing rolls with your fingers, you can choose to do rolls with just 1 finger. So I turn the dynamics right down, and here we've got a nice little roll, and then you've got another roll using a hard mallet. You've then got some other little noises, some muted hits. So they've got virtually no sustain at all. And then you've got some effects which we won't bother with. And then finally we've got some nice swells, which again follow the same track as the previous swells we saw. So short swells, swells, and again those are tempo synced, so they'll fit in with the tempo of whichever song you're playing, and change accordingly, which are brilliant. So we like the bass drum, very nice, very bassy, very boomy. Next we've got toms. Interesting thing about toms, they've been recorded what I would think is the wrong way. They go from high at the bottom end here. Maybe just choose toms. With low being at the top of the keyboard, so conveniently they've put a articulation they call toms hits reversed, but to be honest, that fits me better. I'm used to playing toms like that, so you've got some really nice toms there. You've got rolled toms, as we'd expect. We've got some swells, rolled swells, some short ones, slightly longer ones again, and again this is divided octave by octave into the different toms. So you've got short swells on every C, and then longer swells on the B. So that's the mezzo forte tom rolls. Then we've got the swells, which are on a forte, so we've got these really loud. Big hits, which is great. And they're a lovely big sound, and again you can put the ambient mics on nice and loud there and go some nice big sounds. So they're great for those epic trailers. Very nice and rhythmical, that's great. Then you've got Cymbals and Timpani, the last two. We've got about a minute and a half to finish this before YouTube stops me recording. So these are cymbals, very simple. They've got hits starting from the C, and the further you move up the octave, the harder they come. So you can start with a little roll, and move towards the end. You've got the biggest hits up the top there. Press the sustain pedal and they mute, which is quite handy. And that's been set in as a controller on the mute button. You can control that from just right-clicking. Whoops, hang on a moment. Just right-clicking there. No idea how you do that actually. Anyway, so that's the cymbals. You've also got various types, muted hits, nice little choked hits. You've got some brushes, and some very clever rolls. The rolls are quite nice. You can start off with your dynamics using the mod wheel, and go through those, which is very nice. And then last but not least, we've got the timpani. Much like the east-west timpani, these are mapped over several octaves with a left-right hit in the bottom and the top. So you see there, we've got a upper C and a lower C. Press the sustain pedal. Very big and deep. Lots of velocity layers. And then with this you've also got the rolls, which are controlled by the dynamic foot pedal. So just hit a note and bring the dynamics up. Release on that as well, which you can change the volume for. So there we are. That's the some of the percussion. I think you'll agree that's pretty nice.